guys. Can you all hear me? I've been trying to get Jess to be able to do whatever it is she was wanting to do on here. Pick pick comments for me since I don't pay attention. Can you all see me and hear me? As soon as I get some like thumbs up or something, then we'll go. You all like this? Look at this microphone. Am I too far away or not close enough? Good, good. Yep, good. Okay. So, too close? I guess this is what I wanna start, is I wanna ask you all a question. If we're talking about Bryan Kohberger first, if the evidence is there and it's great and it's so strong, then what are we worried about? Why are we coming up with, like, additional, quote, "signs of guilt"? Why are we why are we talking about anything other than the stuff that's in the documents? Um, I guess I've been noticing, and especially with the push for a grand jury. So I'm seeing I'm seeing this come up a lot is the grand jury. And there are some who are confident that this is, an open and shut case and there's great evidence. Um, but at the same time, they want to bypass the preliminary hearing, which is a probable cause hearing. So if we had probable cause to arrest him and we have more evidence now, then why are we worried about skipping things? Why are we trying to um, put out more facts that say guilty? I mean, I guess I just figure if it was all there, if it's there and it's all there and it's great um, evidence, then I'm not really sure why we're looking for other things to talk about. Why would we want to skip a preliminary hearing if we thought that the little bit of stuff we saw in that PCA was good enough? Because really, that's all they have to present, right? They don't have to add any new stuff. They don't have to have um, Dylan's, and other witnesses come in, and they just need to show that the things that they said they had when they did the probable cause affidavit are legitimate. Um, and stick with that. They don't have to do any new stuff. They don't have to provide anything that they found in his phone or in the searches. They don't have to do any of that. So I'm curious why we would skip that. Why would we want to skip that? Mhm. Right, Lori. We just need to show enough to proceed. So so then my question is, if we're hopeful that the prosecutor will take this to a grand jury because we want to bypass the preliminary hearing, which is the probable cause hearing, which we say we've already established. Why would we want to do that? We're not giving away any additional evidence. Is it maybe because we're concerned? It's really interesting because there was kind of like a shitstorm of bad bad for the prosecutor things that were coming out. So we had like Bloom or Blum, whatever his name is, who was bringing up the knife sheath stuff, and there was the Brady Giglio filing, and it's almost like miraculously a a, um, anonymous law enforcement source, which I'm starting to wonder if that includes, like, retired law enforcement sources, um, just miraculously happens to share this piece of information that's once again just so damning for the defense, and it's this ID, but, you know, there's a lot of if it's trues and, um, one minute we're not saying that it's a victim's, then we're just saying it's somebody's connected to the house, and then so it's like it's almost like trying to convince yourself when if it is strong, then it should just be. You shouldn't have to add any extra stuff. Um, yeah. Yeah, so I do see this a lot. Sorry, I keep clearing my throat. Um, you know, there are other ways that this person would get away with this. One of the ways would be if there were additional people that had something to do with this, that aren't also punished, or him not even being the person, in which case the person who did it is still out there, not being punished. There's also a general confusion. If you think for a single moment that this stuff that keeps getting brought up constantly is not going to go to the defense and they're not gonna say, "Look at this. Look what they did. Look what all they're saying." They're implying that he's a serial killer. Um, they're saying that he's being connected to different cases here and there and everywhere. And, you know, it really can be damaging. It's not just, it's so funny because I was saying to somebody the other day is that they keep on saying, if you think that he's not going to get a fair trial because this is so widely publicized and there's rumors and this and that, like, I have a couple words for them and a couple names for them. And there's OJ Simpson and Casey Anthony. Well, the part that they're leaving out is that both of those people got away with murder, right? So, whether they had a jury and they were able to follow through with court or not, it's irrelevant to me if someone that's responsible for something does not get convicted. And as much as I'll say that you're innocent until you're proven guilty, there's no one in the world that's going to tell me that she didn't kill that baby. So, I'm just saying that you want justice and you want it to be real justice. And my whole confusion lives in if this is such a solid case and they've given us all this information, all of these warrants and um you're hearing about bits and pieces of evidence inside those warrants and things like isn't that enough? Why is that not enough? How could that not be enough if it's such an open and shut solid case? That makes no sense. So, we're like living in this ridiculousness where we're coming up with things that aren't real. And I would rather, it's incredibly frustrating when there's many things to talk about and they have access. So for example, the news. Okay, they have access to experts that can explain things to us in a way that comes from knowledge, schooling, experience, things like that. Instead of talking about what's actually going on, we're talking about crazy things that I can almost guarantee you that 95% of what we're hearing is not gonna show up in this hearing or this trial at all. So, when we are bored and we need something to report on, Why don't we go through and figure out exactly when warrants were pulled, when information came back from the warrants, um, what was happening at the time that stuff came back from the warrants? Uh, which directions can we go to try to get the people to talk to us? I'm sorry, but if these anonymous if these law enforcement people who are giving up this information are telling the truth and they're legitimate and they're actually people who are working on the case and not like just the peanut gallery of other law enforcement people who think they know what's going on, then why are they not coming at they're not bound by a gag order in Pennsylvania. And it's interesting because they're not, but they're also confused because in that other case in the Supreme Court with all of the media people, they're literally saying, "We don't know. We think we're bound by the gag order. We don't know." Everyone needs clarity and they're not getting it. So, why don't these people just come forward and say whatever it is they have to say? Because at this point, if the source is worth a damn and it's actually somebody that was there when the warrants were being served, and let's say there is IDs there, and this is coming from a firsthand person that was present, and they don't wanna put their name out there because they don't wanna be in trouble, which I mean, I feel like if you have to, like if you're like, I might get in trouble for telling this," then you probably should keep your mouth shut. Um, if it's a legitimate person, they're giving us information that can't be explained away as, "Well, we were speaking to these people prior to the gag order. We're just disseminating the information, um, over a course of time because there is no other news." So, for me personally, I'm gonna focus on what's actually here, um, instead of making stuff up. And if it don't sound good or it doesn't sound strong or doesn't sound right or it's making no sense, then that's just what it is. I mean, is it does it make you uncomfortable? Like, if it doesn't make any sense or it doesn't look very good or doesn't look very strong, what is what is the reason for fighting it, for sticking up for it and coming up with something else and twisting it all up? Is it because we're scared that it's easy, I guess, to arrest somebody for something like this? Because it is. Um, I think that understanding what's going on here is really lacking. It's very sad. So, we can talk about this in greater detail. I was trying to put everything together in like a document where I could explain. So, for instance, one of the things that I keep hearing constantly is that they're looking back all the way to January 2021 because, they think that um maybe he was connected to one of the victims long before we thought he was. You know, I sit here and I look at these documents and I'm like, where is this even coming from? Are you just are you just looking at dates? Are you looking at names on these warrants? Like, are you even aware what warrants were pulled for who, for what time frame, and for what reason? And when did they come back? Because I really doubt it. Okay. Because there are some things. So, for instance, we've talked about this in a space before where okay, so you walk into a crime scene house. You see 4 deceased people with stab wounds, okay? Beside one or between 2 of them, however it really is, it doesn't really seem like they remember well, is a sheath to a very specific type of knife that you clearly think is the knife. Great. That is a big clue. You should be super excited about that sheath because why on earth would a sheath be beside people that were stabbed to death, right? Unless it was used in some way, right? So then you're like, "Holy shit, we got this sheath. We need to start figuring out who owns a knife that could go in this sheath," right? Wrong. The first thing we do, which is understandable, I guess, is they pull these tower dumps. It's fine. You go to the cell phone towers and you say, "I need to know about every device that was in the area. This is the distance, half a mile, 2 miles, whatever the case is." And then you gotta pilfer through all of that data. It'd be a lot. So, but the first thing they decide to do, 3 days after they walk into this house and find 4 people dead and a knife sheath laying in between 2 of them, is they get these cell tower dumps, and they do it for AT&T, Inland Cellular, T-Mobile. Nope, not T-Mobile, I'm lying, Verizon. So, AT&T, Inland Cellular, and Verizon. 3 days later on the 16th. What they also do on the 16th is they send out warrants to Verizon and T-Mobile. And the T-Mobile one, no crickets today. I'm hoping this will cut out the crickets. Um, so they send warrants to T-Mobile for 2 phone numbers belonging to unknown subscribers. Okay. They also send a warrant to Verizon. I'm gonna rephrase my wording. I don't even mean that they sent it because a lot of these, they got the warrants and they weren't served for days, sometimes weeks. So the judge signed the warrant, I should say. The 2 phone numbers to unknown subscribers for T-Mobile and 3 for Verizon. Those could not have possibly came Oh, Cricket Wireless. I'm thinking about the crickets that are usually, like, playing in the background. Everybody loves those. Um, no, I don't guess not Wireless. I don't even know what Inland Cellular is, but so that's what they did. But these 5 phone numbers didn't come from cell tower dumps, okay? Because they hadn't even gotten the tower dumps back yet at all. So who are these 5 phone numbers and where did they come from? Um, my theory and looking at a bunch of other things is perhaps these are the number of people that were at the house when they responded. That makes sense. Is now we need to know when all of these people got here, if they actually did get here when they say they did, um, who they are. The warrant was actually for phone call data, incoming, outgoing, text messages, IP addresses, cell tower pings. So it was fairly specific for those 5. So it makes sense to me if that would be the people that were there when they arrived on the scene. What's interesting is that there's 5 of them. I wonder if 2 of them are the roommates, 3 are the people that were called over there, or like if there were 5 additional people there, which is a lot. So they do that. Then they also what is this? No, that's it. Those cell tower dumps, and that's it. So, it's not until the 19th of November that they start pulling bank accounts. Bank of America, Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, Umpqua, which is a local bank, and they actually have a warrant that also goes in for surveillance footage, um, for that bank from November 12th at 9 p.m. through the time 911 was called, and they wanted surveillance footage. So, I think that's interesting, and what is interesting about that is they kinda cut it off. They don't cut it off to where, um, the murders would have happened, right? They kinda cut it off to where whoever was there when they arrived, maybe their path would be on camera also. So, uh, a lot of this we don't even get back. Here's my point. So, on the 20th of November, that's when we first start looking into anybody's social media, okay, at all. So, we're now 7 days into walking into this scene and finding people stabbed to death with a knife sheath beside their body and no warrants put out to find out what happened to this knife sheath, or if anybody bought one or anything like that, and I get it that they went to local stores, but that's, like, not enough because this is a college town. These people are from all over, so to be so bold as to assume that the knife was bought at a local store, like, right before it happened is not very thorough. So, you could do it really quickly, um, but 10 warrants ago, I would have already been putting stuff in to try to get information on this knife sheath. So, they start pulling everybody's Facebook. They pull Kaylee's Facebook and Instagram. They get that back on the 21st. So, as of the 21st, they have everyone that she communicated with on Facebook and Instagram, comments, likes, people that she friended and unfriended, all the information from Facebook and Instagram they had on the 21st of November. That day, they go and they get Ethan's Facebook. They get a random Snapchat for Maddie. Uh, then they start pulling stuff from Apple, Maddie's Facebook, all 4 of their Apple accounts, and their Snapchats on the 21st. It also happens to be the day that a judge signs a warrant for Walmart asking about knife sales of K-Bar knives. So finally, right? Like, okay, so from the 13th to November 21st, it took to request the warrant and whatever, it's fine because now we have it. It's November 21st. We have a warrant that's going to help us. We can get into their phones. We can get on their social media and we can see who might have bought some K-bar knives or a K-bar knife from Walmart. Just Walmart, right? Except we don't even serve the warrant to Walmart until 7 days later on 11/28. Why are we doing that? Does anybody know? Why are we wh what would be the reason for getting a warrant for knife sales for this sheath that we found in between 2 stabbed bodies on the 13th? We get it on the 21st, and then we wait an entire week to actually serve the warrant. Please explain. And I don't wanna hear that somebody was on vacation or this and that because they served a lot of warrants on 11/21. It's just odd to me. That Walmart warrant didn't come back until December the 9th. So we didn't know nothing about anybody buying any K-Bar knives from Walmart specifically until December the 9th. So after we put out the car, that we saw the car, after we put that out on the 7th, There's many things that happened in all of that time while we were waiting for that data. Well, we could have probably gotten it 7 days sooner if we had sent it out the day that the judge signed it. Not to mention it expires in 7 days. So we waited till the day it was set to expire, and then we just went ahead and served it. So, uh, they do the charter communications. Oh, look, wait a minute. So Amazon on November 26th. So we got one signed for Walmart on 11/21, but it was Thanksgiving, I guess. So we waited until November 26th to have the judge sign off on Amazon and eBay. Well, eBay was the 27th. Okay. So we should have a lot of data come through, right? We don't get the Amazon K-bar knife sales until December the 8th, and we don't get the eBay knife sales. Oh, well, we do get the knife sales for eBay on 11/28, which is interesting. That was really fast. Uh, but what's coolish about that is that when they gave us that data from eBay, they gave us several names, several users, 12 of them to be exact. So they give us the names of 12 eBay users who bought K-bar knives. That's a great lead. We get that back on, let me make this smaller. So we get that information on 11/29. And then on the same day, the judge signs a warrant and says, "Hey, uh, wait a minute. That's not right." Oh, that's hmm. Okay, 11/28, yeah. And then the judge signs on 11/29 or 28, sorry. We want all the information about these 12 people. So everything they've bought, where they live, where their IP addresses are, all of that stuff. And we get that back the next day on 11/29. That's great. So we have we have these lists, right, of these people, and we're going on Tinder. Now we're pulling Tinder, which is somewhat logical, I guess, if these were younger guys maybe that were pulling and we're like maybe the kids met them on Tinder or whatever. So they pull Tinder, random Reddit for Kaylee. They send something out to K-bar. They pull everybody's Facebooks again, Kaylee's Google account, and then what's interesting is they pull Kaylee's Tinder on 11/29. He serves it, judge signs it, he serves it. He gets that information back on December the 5th. On December the 6th, he turned around and used the data from that warrant return, Kaylee's, that turned up 19 profiles on Tinder on December 6th. So they served Tinder with a warrant for the information about these 19 people on Kaylee's Tinder, and their conversations would have taken place between, why is this doing this? Hmm. Their conversations would have taken place between 11/3/2022 to present. That's interesting. That's interesting because was she talking to 19 different people on Tinder when they had, like, just broken up, like, 2 weeks ago? Like, 2 weeks before they died? I mean, I'm not judging, I'm just saying, did all of these people come back as having spoken to her? It's irrelevant. I mean, if I would be wanting information even if they just said hello, right? Or ended up in an others folder and she didn't respond. Now, I wanna be clear. When they got back the Facebook, the Tinder, the, Instagram, the Snapchat, the Reddit, all of those warrants, when they came back, if Bryan Kohberger's information would have been in those returns, okay? So if there were conversations between Bryan Kohberger and any of these girls or Ethan, they would have been able to use that it came back in the return to go ahead and pull a warrant for whatever profile he was using, okay? That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. As we all know, the only warrant that was pulled for Bryan Kohberger prior to his arrest was on December 23rd for his cell phone location because he wasn't showing up in the cell tower dumps. Are we with me? So, the Google account, the Tinder, the Yik Yak, the Twitter, all of that stuff was after his arrest. If they were talking on if he was messaging them on Instagram, why wasn't his Instagram pulled at all? Does he even have one? Where's his Facebook one? Please don't tell me that there's more than what we know about because, I mean, there's literally no reason whatsoever to be leaving that out, okay? So, something else interesting is after Bryan Kohberger's arrest, they send a warrant oop, for a Dropbox account with a redacted name, not Bryan Kohberger's Dropbox account, not one of the victims. It could have been one of the surviving roommates because they did redact their names, which I'm not sure why because they already put them on blast in that PCA. Uh, but other than that, I don't know who else it would be, but it's not his. There's no reason to redact that. So then oh, no. So when they're looking at his Tinder nothing, nothing. So when they're looking at his Tinder account, they're only looking from June 2022 to present when they requested the warrant, okay? When they looked at the girls' Tinder accounts, like the general Tinder accounts, they were looking from June 2021 to present, a whole year prior. So, wouldn't it make sense if they thought that he like, what we're trying to get into is that he, um, might have been talking to them a year prior, right? Knowing that they pulled the girls' Tinder accounts for June 2021 to present, why wouldn't they pull his from June 2021? Why only June 2022? I'm sorry, but not for nothing. A lot of a lot of this evidence and these connections are from a misunderstanding of what is here and what is not here. Now, like I said, I'm not saying that what's here is strong or isn't strong, but what I'm saying is if this person is in jail awaiting trial by himself for murder, there should be something here. We were told from the minute that this happened that this was isolated and targeted. They said they saw something at the scene that said that this was targeted towards either those people in the house or the house. So, what was the connection? Because if there was any connection between them, any of them, even the surviving roommates, and Bryan, why wouldn't they put that in the PCA? I know they don't have to give everything away. I know they don't have to put enough evidence to convict somebody, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. I know. I know. I know. I know. But it certainly doesn't hurt to say, if true, and I'm making these up, so don't go spreading them. Bryan spoke to so and so through Tinder, and they went on a date, and he tried to reach out to them repeatedly via Tinder or Instagram or whatever, and they didn't answer. I mean, that helps establish when you're thinking about um that they're giving us information that's supposed to lead us in the direction of that it's likely that they committed the crime that we're saying that they committed. Wouldn't connecting them either to the victims or the people that survived, or physically putting them at the scene or their vehicle near the scene, wouldn't that be important? Like, baseline, like, important? I think if there was I mean, I think we're all on the same page now at this point, right? That the car that they saw on the cameras didn't have a license plate on it. Are we all in agreement with that? Because if there was a license plate on that car, they would have never came forward asking for people to look for it. Wouldn't have been the wrong year. Other offices wouldn't have had to look out for it. It would have been, they would have knew exactly who it was and what it was, and it could have just stayed quiet also. Apart from that, if they had it, they'd put it in the PCA. If you're talking about a bunch of points of facts, which technically the PCA doesn't even have to be, um, you would put whatever you have that can't be argued. So if what the if what the defense attorney is going to do is they're going to argue every tiny part of that PCA, you wanna put in things that are, like, not arguable, right? So, you can argue with me all day that my FBI agent with 35 years experience screwed up the years on the car, so then it might not be your client. But if I have 10 cameras with a picture of his license plate and his car going by, it's much harder to argue that at that point. So, also not for nothing, and this is just a little side note, something that sketches me out is that we've never seen a photo of the white Hyundai Elantra, ever. Why? It's just weird. Alright, so, hmm, not ever having seen the car, it's just strange. It's just why not? Yeah, I was thinking this exact same thing, because when it was announced, they said from tips and leads or or through interviews and tips is how they found out that there was a white Hyundai Elantra in the area, okay? And then, of course, we get the PCA, and it's like, literally every camera that exists, he drove by us, coming and going, except, like, not in between, you know? So and yeah, probably the Ring camera probably wasn't great in terms of clarity, uh, but 5 cameras that you have in Washington, he drove through every single one of them, and not for nothing, I'm not buying that he didn't know they existed. We're talking about they said that he was in the area, he pinged in the area 12 times prior to the homicides. What was he doing? If he was stalking them, planning to kill them, what was he doing? Because he wouldn't have been observing where the cameras were since he managed to literally hit every single one of them. He wasn't watching to see when everyone went to bed because he went in there while there were still a bunch of people awake, damn near all of them. And we can't say that he didn't know that they were awake until he went in there because he would have seen a DoorDash driver bring DoorDash food or known about it. If he didn't know about it, he at least saw it. So I think it's important at this point, and it's becoming like more and more clear to me. I get so frustrated, y'all, and I like really try not to. I don't want to be mean, and I don't at all think that my opinion is, like, the only opinion that matters. What I do care about is when I get groups of really smart people that don't wanna just be fed the information, they wanna actually learn it so that you can bring it to the next case and the next case, and it's important to know this stuff so it doesn't happen to you. I mean, really, it doesn't hurt to know how the criminal justice system works to even a slight degree, to where you're not entirely reliant upon whoever it is that's offered to help. You know what I mean? So I get to looking at these warrants alone, and I'm like, you can tell me that your experience, your training and experience, or whatever it is that we keep hearing over and over again. Not for nothing, but if you're trying to keep your spot on a news show as a guest or a correspondent, or you're trying to solve a case that you're getting a lot of pressure to solve, I I don't know how serious I'm gonna take what it is that you're saying, because I don't know when you have outside influences, I think it muddies your opinion on things. Granted, your training and experience can also do that. That's why I like, the lawyer you know. I'll bring him up every time just because I appreciate being told what it actually is from all standpoints. Like, when I come to you and I ask you a question, I want you to use your knowledge that you got when you were in the FBI, but I don't want you to give me an FBI answer, okay? Or I want you to use your knowledge as a prosecutor, but I don't want you to give me a prosecutor's answer, okay? Like it's your case. I don't want you to come and tell me that things are strong that aren't. And if you're a defense attorney, I don't want you to come and tell me that, something's irrelevant and isn't going to matter when it really will. I want to understand it. I'm going to give, I'm going to put the link down in here. If anybody wants to come talk, we'll obviously have to do another one to talk about Stephen Smith. And I'm here to tell you, I don't really know what is going on. Me and Irina, man, me and Irina, all day we're like, what the fuck is this? Didn't she just say? Didn't I just read? And it's entirely opposite. Makes no sense. So I can give you like what it is, but, and we'll run over things that we know. But even the things we know with that case, we don't even really know. It was so stepped on, it's not even funny. You know, when I was trying to verify just regular things, can't be done. You know, even something as simple as everyone keeps saying that like Steven was an escort. But then we're getting, like, interviews, recorded interviews, and we're hearing and his sister's like, "Absolutely not." Mom's like, "Absolutely not." There's no pictures of Steven with men. There's no posts out there about Steven advertising anything. I wanna know where all this shit is coming from. It really doesn't make any sense to me. So, we will get into that, but Ed and Duty Ron are doing Forensics Fridays, so we'll jump off here if nobody wants to come up, but, you know, I'm just really annoyed. I feel like, again, and it's like a broken record, but I just feel like if it's there and it's good and it's strong and it has you convinced that somebody did something, then why can't we talk about it? Like, why can't we talk about it without all the extra crazy bullshit? Like, why can't we actually talk about it? To this day, like, if I was a reporter and I was like, "Oh, you know, what can I look up in this case? See what's going on." Aren't they curious at all about this Brady Giglio stuff? They keep saying that it's not a big deal, but, like, how would you know if you don't know, how do you know? If you don't know, how do you know? And if he's guilty, then I feel like we should be able to talk about the stuff that's here. I don't think we should be having to say that they're pulling something from a year ago when they're really not. This is true. This is true for Steven. So, she said not escorting. She said he was on gay apps. It didn't say, like, exactly which ones. I know she said one, but it didn't sound like any of the ones that I had, like, heard of, so I'm not really sure. But she did say that he was looking for friends. She said that he wouldn't have been in a relationship, because he had trust issues. She said that he was not taking money from people, except for Mark, but she didn't know Mark wasn't his type, like, they weren't dating. It's just very strange, and I don't think and they start the interview by saying about your brother, like, being gay or something like that. Like, was he, like, openly gay? I think because the whole idea was that it was like a hate crime, which would have got them some help. Was he pretty open or whatever? And she was very hesitant, she didn't answer, and he said, "Well, like, outside of the house, not with you guys." And she was like, "Yeah." Hmm? So, I don't know. I haven't seen any of that. I don't know if somebody, um there's a lot that can be talked about there. I don't know. I can't see Steven. Like, his Facebook, there's nothing. I don't know what of all of that is true, and I don't want to be putting things out about Steven that, depending on the day, may or may not be true, you know? But what I do know is that I don't understand why we keep saying that the Murdaughs, they don't know why this was brought up or that they have nothing to do with it, or I'm here to tell you that they're in the paperwork more so than the 2 that people are trying to say have been named as, um, people of interest. The name Murdaugh appears more than that. So, and in watching several interviews, uh, I'm almost inclined to believe that see, we all we all think that when they put out that statement for everybody and they're like, "Listen, we think that people were scared to come forward and talk prior to Alex going to prison. Now that that case is over, we think that they'll be more free to talk." I think it's law enforcement. I don't think it has anything to do with, like, a friend or someone that might have been there. I don't. I think it was someone involved, and it's interesting because I listened to, Eric Bland from a couple days ago, and he said that whoever the head guy over is at SLED says that he's positive that 5 or 6 people have information about what happened to Steven and could help solve his murder. I don't I don't think um, that there was 5 people in a truck. I mean, it could have been. I'll be surprised. I'll be very surprised. If I find out that there were 5 people present for his death and nobody spoke up, I'm gonna be surprised. But it's possible, I guess. And if it ends up being true, you all should remember that the next time people say, "Oh, can't have that many people know about something that happened and nobody speak." It's been 8 years. I think that someone or several someones that was in that investigation based off of the clusterfuck that it was, I would say that people were scared in that way. Why did no one reach out to why did they reach listen, at one point, someone sounded like he was trying to talk himself into calling the Murdals. He was like, "I told him I'm gonna call Buster here soon." He called him, like, one time and, like, sent a follow-up email, that was it. So we'll see. But I pushed this back several times because I needed Jess, and also, I felt like the people that like to talk about my eyebrows was gonna be here. So I waited because I didn't wanna have nobody I'm gonna have to Irina says it was Grinder. I thought that's what it said. It sounded very strange because 'cause I've heard of that one. It didn't quite sound like that, but, um, so I waited for Jess and we started late, and I totally forgot that today was Forensics Friday. And it's funny because I got a message from Do You Run. He's like, "We're gonna go live, me and Ed, and we're gonna do Forensics Friday, and we're gonna talk about Kohberger and all the evidence that we know about so far, and media something or other, like the media rumors." And, I was like, "What evidence?" Like, what like, legitimately, what actual evidence besides the knife sheath? And we're still really wishy-washy on the knife sheath. We only put it in one affidavit. We filed a bunch of affidavits. We chose to only put it in one affidavit. Well, we put it in 2 technically, but in the second one, we asked that they not consider it, and they didn't consider it. So, what other evidence? Yes, this is it. That's what we're missing. That is the evidence. You're right. If if we're gonna say that evidence not really forensics evidence, but if we're gonna say that evidence is him sending messages to the girls on Instagram, where is the search warrant for his Instagram? What would be the reason they wouldn't make that public? Everyone's like, "They can't give out the information." Why? Bryan Kohberger has been arrested. If he's the only one that did this, who cares if you put this out? Do you really Bryan Kohberger already knows what all they have on him. He knows way more than we do. So, if the idea is that we don't wanna put this stuff out because we wanna have a fair trial, I get that. However, nothing's being done. I'd rather know the real evidence than this crazy nonsense that keeps getting, released, and the problem is that we do the right thing. We look towards, experts because 'cause they're supposed to know more than us, right? So we look to them, and we try to learn as much as we can, and we trust, like, what they say because they're experts and they know more than we do. So, what do we do? And I'll leave us with this. What do we do when those we're supposed to trust for trusted, verified information, real information, not just rumor and not just speculations? What do we do when those people resort to only bias, because we're there now, bias, rumors, and speculation, knowing that we're looking for that information from them and won't know any better to fact check. So if you tell me that police are looking to see if they knew each other back in January of 2021, and I don't know how to read a search warrant or all the search warrants, and I don't know how the process works, or I missed something, this is true. The problem with this is that the experts I can deal with a little bit of being biased from experts that are using actual information and evidence. I have a problem when we're going off of anonymous nothing burgers and flat out say, as experts, these are the people, listen to me, these are the people who would be testifying in a trial, let's say your trial, and you're thinking, and we're separating this from Bryan Kohberger right now, your trial, and you're thinking, it's fine. I'm innocent. The experts will explain that this is what that my phone was nowhere near there. Or the experts will explain that my car, that is not my car. Or the experts will explain that, you know, and it doesn't happen that way. On a good day, experts can be wrong. They're giving your opinions. What they're doing is they're telling a jury of 12 normal ass people just like us what their opinion is and whether it's true or not or correct or not, we decide if that's right. And then we make a decision about someone's life based off of who was more personable during the trial, who was better able to explain what they were saying during the trial. It happens. It happens. Expert advice on breaking news with zero proof. And I'm also inclined to say that in some instances, not only that, but are providing the breaking news and then offering expert opinions on it. It's not okay. It's not okay. It's not okay. So that's the question I want everybody to think about. What do we do when where we go for information that's supposed to be verified and accurate? The news. I had been living in a fantasy world, apparently, because I had no clue. I had no clue, dude. I'm still like mid fake news realization, and I'm like disgusted because where am I supposed to get info? Court documents. That's fine when they're available. And we got people out here saying, "We don't need to know everything. Let them do their jobs." Why do we do stuff in secret? We do things in secret when we A, know that it's wrong, or B, know that it sounds bad, or C, don't want anyone to know we're doing it. So, this would be a hell of a lot easier if we could use court documents like the PCA. That PCA is like a half-written story of speculation and leaving stuff out. Sorry, but that's what it is. Doesn't link anything together. It doesn't even give you pings from Pullman to Moscow. It doesn't give you this white car on camera from Pullman to Moscow. It doesn't even give you the white car leaving. It's got it on camera like a bunch of times in Moscow, but it doesn't happen to catch whatever way it left. That's pretty convenient. It's bizarre. The whole thing's bizarre. And I'm sorry. I'm not saying that he's guilty or not guilty, but what I am saying is that me as an American who's free in America, who has constitutional rights, okay, and is not even fully understanding of the justice system and what can happen to people, um, but slightly enlightened, I guess you could say, and fully intending on becoming much more enlightened. This is not enough for me. This is not okay with me. And I know that he pushed the probable cause hearing back on his own, and I get that. I totally get it. But there's a reason why there's usually a set number of days that they can keep you in prison without having or jail without having that hearing. It's like a checks and balances thing. So circle all the way back around to the very beginning of this conversation where I said, if the evidence is so strong and this is such an open and shut case, what are we worried about and why are we lying? Why are we trying? Why would we hope for a grand jury and skip the easiest hearing that we're going to have, which is to go and tell a judge that we've established probable cause and show her why? The same judge, dude, the same judge that already signed the probable cause to go do these things. Why would we wanna skip that? What are we worried about? And if you think that you know all the evidence against this person, or any person for that matter, you should make sure that you're getting it from a source that doesn't have a reason to get as many people as possible to watch or listen, because what it's doing is it's allowing, let's say that let's say something's wrong here. Let's just say that something's wrong here. We're letting ourselves get sidetracked because we have the experts in the media. What? It can't. I am so disappointed. I thought that's where all the best ones got their sources from. Notice how we've moved on and we're not talking about things. Like, we're no longer talking about him getting fired. It's not gotten brought up at all. We're no longer talking about the conflict of interest. We're no longer talking about hardly talking about the Instagram messages that didn't happen. I took screen recordings of multiple people who are saying now that the knife sheath is not that big of a deal, that the car is the key. And just like a couple weeks ago, where I have it screen recorded saying the final nail in his coffin is going to be that knife sheath. That is the single most important piece of evidence. Then it comes out that it might be a little wonky, and it's like, they don't need the sheath. They don't need the sheath. They have IDs and gloves inside boxes. Come on. This is ridiculous. It's either there and it's good and it's strong, or it's not. And us talking about it, if anyone's listening, facts. And anyone's listening, if he really did do it, and us normal ass people who are the normal ass people who are going to have to decide whether he's guilty or innocent are saying, this is weird. That don't sound right. It needs to be stronger in this way. Maybe they'll go looking for that. But right now it just looks like fishing. And my concern is, if this person really did do it and this half-assed hoopla and SB, stop it. It's true though. I could literally, I don't wanna I don't wanna talk bad about anybody, but I need to know why. The information is there. There's information here. Why aren't we talking about it? Why are we making things up? Stop making shit up. If it's that strong of a case, we don't need to make shit up. Let's talk about the shit that we found, the real shit. It's ridiculous. This is scary. I would like to feel comfortable and confident. 'Cause that's the only thing we know that it's on, supposedly. Well, okay, so I'm sure a source will tell us. They'll clear this up after this, I'm sure. But all we know is that this knife sheath had a male's DNA on it, and they didn't know whose. So then they dug in the trash and found another set of DNA, and they were like, "Hey, let's, like, do a paternity test on these 2 pieces of DNA and see what it says." And it said, "It might be the father." There's like a 99.9998% chance. And it's funny because, like, if you go and they say, like, they say 99.9998% of males, like, in the United States would expect to be excluded from this. And if you look up, like, the population of males, right? And, like, 99.9997% of the population of males, that leaves, like, 300 some odd people. It's not like one person. And I was trying to figure out, if, like, if you got a paternity test on yourself, what would it say? I'm not saying nothing other than the fact, like, if your dad took a paternity test with himself, what would the result be? But anyway, so we have trash DNA and we have sheath DNA, and we know that it's likely, highly likely, that the trash DNA is sheath DNA's dad, okay? Why are none of the sources letting us know that, like, Bryan Kohberger's DNA matched the sheath? They'd have had it by now. If I'm sticking my ass on the line and I'm gonna give up something from the investigation that I ain't supposed to be talking about, it's gonna be that there was a DNA match to Bryan Kohberger for sure. So I don't know. What I do know is that I think we could do a little better, and I'm tired of hearing I don't even wanna hear, like, I hate doing this. I hate doing this. I do. I hate talking to myself, being on here. I do. But I like talking to you all. I wanna drown out the nonsense conversations and start having, like, legitimate conversations where we're actually talking about things that are real. I had somebody in my thread that was like, they have his DNA and, one of the victims' DNA under his fingernails and, like, just and I'm like, Where did this come from? Where are you hearing this?" And here's the problem, is that regardless of whether this shit is true or not, these normal people are gonna go to court to be on this jury, and they're gonna say, "Yeah, I can forget about everything that I've heard. I'll only consider the evidence that I hear in court." And then, like, none of this shit come up in court. But what do you think the odds are of that person then going to go consider a verdict with the other 11 people and them actually not take into consideration the nonsense that they heard outside of court? So we're putting out this ID card stuff, right? And we're saying we're putting it out there and putting it out there over and over again. But if it's true, And then in the next breath, it's like, this is damning. He had an ID. We don't know what kind of ID. We don't know whose. Someone connected to the house. We can't say where it came from. Please don't ask. They're going to be like, um, do you think he's guilty based off of what we heard in there? And they're going to be like, shit, I don't know. But I did hear that this crazy motherfucker had one of their driver's license library cards in a glove in a box at his daddy's house. Mm, why would he have that? He must be guilty. There is no explanation for that. Shit like that happens, I'm just saying. It's hard to forget stuff. And at this point, like, we're barely into this, and already people are, like, confused about what they read and what they heard and what is real and what is verified. So, I don't know if this is meaning, like, whatever they collected from the search warrants, if it had to be connected. I know I saw that at some point today or heard it or whatever. And somebody commented and was like, "Didn't they collect pennies? What, like, evidentiary value is that? The pennies." I'm sure there's other crazy things. So I don't know about that. You're only supposed to, but we're human beings and we have to be, like, reasonable, you know? In a glove, in a box, in a box, in a bigger box, in a floorboard, in his car. It's insane. Yes, Jessica, I can see you. 27 minutes ago. Yes, I could see her. All right. And, this isn't funny. Like, I mean, it is funny. This is funny. But this situation, man, this is 10 carats. That was my guess. What? What? Knife. 10 cheese curls. It does. Never. I didn't expect to go this long, and I thought you all would come up and talk to me. But I had this whole I was gonna explain everything and the dates that everything came back and this and that. Uh, but then I didn't because it's, like, super boring. This is probably boring anyway, but it's, like, super boring and also confusing. And the bottom line of it is that they were obviously looking at other people, or at least there were other options that were available as people that should have been they should have been followed up with. They're looking at 19 people on one of the girls' Tinders, 20 people on one of the other girls' Tinders. They've got all of their Facebook information. They've got all of their Instagram information. I know what my DMs look like, the ones I don't answer. I know what theirs probably look like. So you have all these people, okay? I hope you followed up with all those people. I really do. Because whoever's not you all have to say that because the ones that are saying that already love me. And that's fine. But I hope they followed up with all of those people because each person that wasn't followed up with and I lose confidence in how many were followed up with just simply because I know who wasn't followed up with, right? Um, I can't reconcile why they wouldn't have spoke to Bryan Kohberger. That makes no sense. Why didn't they? I don't know. I'm told it was because they didn't want to tip him off, which is Lori, I know that's right. I believe you. um, why didn't they bring him into chat when they figured out what kind of car he drove? The whole world didn't know what kind of car they were looking for. So it would have been nothing to go to this man and say, "Listen, we looked at all of the videos and saw this white car. And, it's like this big year, but like we're checking in with everybody. There was a lot of people around, and there was a lot of people around. This looks like your car. Was it you? Were you in Moscow that night? If so, like what were you doing? Now, then if he would have lied, right? Said he was never there or said that he was there, but he was at the house, then you can go like a bunch of different ways, right? But what was your reason for thinking that you had to not tip him off? What was he other than somebody that was like maybe driving in the area like a bunch of other people? Were you scared to go talk to them too? So, okay, so we're scared of tipping him off. So, in the background, we're going to learn everything we can about him. Mhm. What did they find out? That he interviewed with the Pullman Police Department. They have no record of whether he got the job or not. Lori, do you think that they were waiting? Do you think it's reasonable to wait? You have this car and you're like, "Oh shit, that might be the car," right? And this guy's got bushy eyebrows, so this might be him. That was hold on, that's Stevens. Pull up 29th, I think. That's like many days. That's like over a week. Yeah, the 29th is when they found his car and his name. So, like, what were they preparing for? Like, I'm just trying to think, like, would you really be suspicious? I mean, I feel like you wouldn't be suspicious, right? You should be following up with everyone that was around. Like, did you follow up with the guy that walked home with them? We know that other people had to call and provide their own information because nobody had contacted them. It's just weird, man. It's weird. That's what they do. They find something out and they go check it. They go follow up on it and they go check it. There was no reason to be sketched out by Bryan Kohberger only because you know that he drives a white Hyundai Elantra. They did, like, over 350 interviews. Who did they interview? They had what was it? 22,000, 20 was it 22,000 cars? 22,000 white Hyundai Elantras between Idaho and Washington that they were looking into, right? What was the results of that? And did you were you scared to reach out to those people too? Did you reach out to those people? Because like, the fear was either that he drove a white Hyundai Elantra. Yeah, they cleared this person. Yeah. Or the bigger guy that was at the food truck who was, like, a couple days later, I was like, "Oh my god, those are the girls that I saw at the food truck," or whatever, and then went and called. Or the private party driver, right? Who picked them up, took them out, and then drove them home right before their death, was like a couple days later, I was like, "Oh my god, I gave those girls a ride home." So, like, I got in contact with the police station and I provided them the receipts to Taco Bell and everything else. And when I got a hold of them, they already knew that I drove them home. So why didn't they reach out to you? It I get it, but this is not weird when you consider the fact that they prefaced that by saying that his tags and stuff were set to expire on November 30th. He was just renewing them like a grown up. That's all. So, I mean, and they knew that. The 29th, Lori. So, there's the one that's the house that's, like, in their parking lot. You know what I'm talking about? Where we've seen the pictures of them, like, on the front porch, like, the little deck, the wooden deck. They have the light bulb camera. Then there's that, like, apartment complex down the street. I could show you, like, on a map, but if you remember, the landlord I put this in the timeline, but the landlord came and said that they saw a white or light colored car drive by. I think it was between, like, 3:45 and let me just look, so I'm not saying something wrong, no better than News Nation. So, this landlord, between 2:45 and 3:15, said they saw a white/light slash light colored sedan on their camera traveling west on Taylor Ave towards the crime scene. Who was that? I mean, I know who I think. I think it was I think it was I don't know how many, like, unmarked police cars there were there other than the one that we saw. Um, but I think that was it. I think that was what it was because I have the reports, like, the supplemental reports and stuff, and that's, like, exactly the time that they were there. He was he was seen, so he was Was it the 13th that he was seen in Loma, Colorado? He left before that. I still think they had plenty of time to reach out to him. They were obviously if they didn't wanna go speak to I just if it doesn't make any sense. If they didn't wanna go speak to him, they had to have known more than just that that he drove that car. I think it's my opinion that when I'm reading the PCA and I'm looking at all of this stuff, it's clear to me that they pulled the footage in the area and they brought that footage, the area of King Road, they brought that footage to an FBI expert, and that expert said that car is a 2011 to 2013 white Hyundai Elantra. And they were like, "Perfect. Let's start looking for that." Then at some point, they brought footage that they got from Pullman and brought that footage to the FBI expert. And that expert said that that car on that footage is 2014 to 2016. You with me? So then they leave the FBI expert and they say, okay, well, let's look for 2011 to 2016. Why? You were told that the one that was in the neighborhood acting crazy, driving up and down the road and everything else, was a 2011 to 2013. That's why that's what you told the public you were looking for, right? I'm just saying. That's the car they were looking for. The PCA doesn't say that they compared the footage with the ones that they got in the King Road area, and then that person changed their mind and said, "Maybe I narrowed it down too much." This person was looking at 2 different things of footage and gave 2 different estimations. If there are 22,000 2011 to 2013, well, they said fit the criteria. So let's say that the reason that number was so high is because they were looking at 2011 to 2016. That makes more sense. In Idaho and Washington, 22,000. So if that's the case, it's like not impossible that there would be another car driving around in another town at around that time, which there was plenty of people out at that time. We saw them on body camera footage. It was a Saturday. So, mhm, mhm. What was what was so, okay, now my brain's like, the car was never seen in Moscow at the same time as the phone was pinging, right? So, we don't ever have the phone and the car in the same exact location in Moscow on the 11th. We have video and no pings, and then we lose it on camera. We guess where they exited because we don't have them on camera, and all of a sudden we have pings down the road. What, like 20 minutes later? Okay, so now we've got pings. It also takes a ridiculous amount of time to get 5 minutes down the road, and we only have camera footage. My thing with this is if you don't know where he is and you don't have the car on camera with the phone pinging at the same exact time on that route, then how do you prove that he turned his phone off during those 2 hours? Where he pops back up is down the interstate is when his phone starts pinging. If he were to get off the interstate and head, like, off the road, like, into nowhere, he would lose service. So, since we don't have him driving from Pullman to Moscow, how do we know that he didn't take 95 the whole way? So, in other words, instead of going across that 270 or whatever it is, cutting across to go into Moscow, and then going back to Pullman via 95, what if he was seen headed towards 270, of course, but it's the same exact way as he would be headed if he was getting on 95, leaving his apartment. So, since we don't have any in between, how do we know he didn't get on 95 and go to that area where he eventually, hours later, would begin pinging again because he finally got back on the interstate and got service? This would be much easier with, like, a map. It's hard to explain, but I guess what I'm saying is I don't understand how we could have someone here and someone there and not in the in between in a normal ass car where we're having it on camera and we have an expert that's been doing this for 35 years basically telling us it's 2 different cars, okay? One is a 2011 to 2013, one is a 2014 to 2016. Bryan Kohberger's is a 2015. So it does match one of the cars that they were interested in, but not the car that was in Moscow. Who's the DoorDash driver? Of course they would. Why wouldn't they try to conceal the fact that they own that car? If you used your car in a crime and you decided not to leave because that might look a little suspicious, are you gonna go register it at the DMV? That's a serious question. Are you? Do you think people that do you think people that have, like, warrants out for their arrest give a fuck about going and, like, renewing their driver's license? At a DMV? with cameras everywhere. They don't give a shit about that. If I committed a crime in my car, there ain't no way. First of all, I would be concerned about driving my car anywhere at all because in case my license was captured, because I'm a dummy and I drove my car to a crime. But then I'm going in and I'm physically like writing it down. I know it's going to the government. They're going to be like sending out new registration cards, and if they do have my license plate number, surely it's going to flag something. So so we can get on the same page because like I said, the problem with this is that we get confused. And I don't have no reason to lie to you. The private party driver, aka Uber at one point, the private party driver that picked them up, took them to the bar, and then brought them home. That person reached out to police. I want to say it was like within the week. It wasn't right away. Reached out to police and told them he was the private party driver. Showed them the Taco Bell receipts and this and that. Um, and they cleared him. And his name is in paperwork, and it's I was just reading somebody's comment. I totally lost it. But he got cleared or whatever. And he happens to live 1,200 feet from Bryan Kohberger's apartment. Okay. The door dasher. Oh, I remember now what I was going to say. Private party person in the paperwork, redacted in some, has a name, was spoken to, for all intents and purposes, exists. The door dasher, nobody knew about until the PCA came out. So, like, up until the PCA came out, nobody none of the news people knew about a DoorDash driver or spoke to one anonymously. They tracked down the private party driver, though, which, to be honest, the name so we have an anonymous private party driver in these news articles that they, like, track down because there's only a couple, they say. And the person that they talked to said that they did drive the girls home, yada, yada, lives 1,200 feet from Bryan Kohberger. Then, weeks and weeks later, the PCA comes out. Sometime after that, more paperwork. Some states redact stuff, some states don't. The name of that person doesn't show as Bryan Kohberger's neighbor, direct neighbor. So I wonder, like, that's a little weird. Like, I wonder if they reached out to the wrong person and that person lied. They don't give a name in the news article, so or if the police spelled the name wrong. Hard to tell. There were so many there were so many grammar and spelling errors. It was like we're all sitting here trying to see what somebody's handwriting says, and I think even if we could see it, it wouldn't make any sense going off of how they wrote other things. But nobody knew about the DoorDash driver. They don't name the DoorDash driver in the PCA, like, and then redact it. And they don't say that they spoke to the DoorDash driver or cleared the DoorDash driver, or I guess I wouldn't expect them to say they cleared him or her. But they don't say that they spoke to him or her. They say that they identified the person or the driver that provided that information. That's all they say. So to me, that could be maybe they provided that information anonymously and they identified that person, right? Like their name doesn't necessarily mean that they talked to them. Yeah, that's true. They said the private party driver had nothing to do with it, or however they, whatever that general state. At this time, we don't think these people have anything to do with the killings or whatever they said, and then they would list people's names off. He was on there, but the DoorDash driver person was not. We don't know anything about the DoorDash driver person. We don't know. Don't know. They don't say it. Correct, Lori. So I almost wonder. I mean, how? What was the DoorDash driver? And also, not for nothing, but the DoorDash warrant went out on December. I don't want to lie to you. DoorDash went out on December the 6th and came back on December the 7th. And December the 7th is when they then announced that they were looking for a 2011 to 2013 white Hyundai Elantra. So, who was the DoorDash driver? And what were they driving? Cammy, I don't it was from how I understand it, and this is really interesting. Maybe Irina can remind me. I don't know if she's still here. But prior to that date of, like, November 18th coming out saying that he registered that day, um, me and Irina pulled things from 2 different services that are, like, partnered with the DMV, and they both said, I wanna say December the 5th, and we were like, "Holy shit," like, somebody changed it December the 5th. It didn't come out that it was November 18th. So, what they were saying was it was initially in the parents', I think mom's name, which makes sense because when we saw it, it was a title transfer or like a new title something. Because we were like, "Why would he renew the title or why would he get a new title?" But if they transferred from mom to him, then he would get a new title issued. And the date that we had for the title being issued, I think, was December the 5th. So, it could have been going off of his parents maybe. I still wanna know if dad when did dad get there? I still wanna know if dad went there to sign whatever to have the title transferred. Did he go to WSU's family night or parents' weekend? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, but when was he there? It would make sense to me if and I know I've said it before, if they were like, "Hey, so and so will come out for Thanksgiving, spend Thanksgiving with you, and then you all can drive back, for Christmas." So Thanksgiving there, Christmas there, and whoever's gonna come there will be there for parents' weekend. My mom does it. We switch back and forth, so she'll come here for a holiday and then we'll go there. Like, why don't we know when he got there? And could it have been then? So, we have the lawyer from Pennsylvania who offered, like, little pieces of information, but then also said that he didn't even talk to Bryan about anything about it. He was simply there to extradite him back to Idaho. So, it's hard to tell. He also is the one that said that Dad Kohberger said that they, like, knocked and were yelling when they went to serve the warrant at the house. So who knows? I just feel like at this point, I just wanna know and I wanna talk about the things that are actually happening, things that have actually happened, things that they actually have on him, and I feel like and again, if it's strong, then that's fine. That's wonderful. I'm glad to hear it, especially after, like, what all I've been looking into. I hope it's strong, but just, like, show me where. Let's talk about that. I actually I found so I'm not gonna say because it's embarrassing and because I haven't looked at it all the way yet. So, like, Albrightsville only has, like, 220 people that live there, right? I feel like I can hear Irina laughing just because she knows where I'm going. I'm not gonna say it, but, like, someone else from another case in another state has an address 4 minutes from the Kohbergers in a town of 220. So I submitted that tip, and I thought that that was gonna be the breaking news for sure. I thought for sure that was gonna be the breaking news. That or, like, the sticker gate paperwork that everybody's been plastering everywhere. I thought for sure that it was gonna be one of those things, was gonna be this ridiculous thing about this person living 4 minutes away from Kohberger in a town of 220 in a different state, or it was gonna be, we found this paperwork and, like, everybody's getting sued. The city attorney, the police department, 2 out of the 3 of the people that responded to the house first, and it was none of those things. It was that there was ID cards in a glove. I will not say it. I will not say it, but I was more shocked to hear that it was that some IDs from someone was in a glove, a glove in a box. I wanted to say to you all, like, what's a little more reasonable? Wink. Town of 220. I'm just saying. I still hope it comes up. I still have faith that that's gonna be repeated, and then we'll all know for sure that no one checks anything, verifies anything. I mean, it's true because I looked it up myself. But if there's no, like, it was anonymous. If it pops up, you can forget it. I won't believe anyone ever again. And it's salacious. Like, it for sure would be in line with this sensationalized, I could probably get a lot of views. If that was what I wanted, I could probably get a lot of views. But it's like, I'm told it's probably nothing. But that's, like, how easy it is to be a a glove in a box. A glove in a box. And then I was like, we've had this whole discussion about, like, wearing gloves to take out the trash, okay? Lori, I'm not. I won't. But I'm just saying, at least there would have been a basis. There would have been some kind of basis. You know what I mean? At least we could have verified that. We could have verified that easily if that's what we were told. How are we supposed to know? We cannot even read the handwriting to confirm independently that it actually says ID cards. We're still arguing about that. So, and the other thing was that, Pennsylvania was looking into seeing if he committed any other crimes, tied to any other crimes, um, being investigated now for, like, other murders or whatever. So, here's my thing, is that way back in February, they had already been looking. So, they started looking as soon as they arrested him and got his DNA. So, I would assume, okay, we have his DNA, let's put it in the system and see if anything pops back. So, we don't have to do this whole trash digging escapades next time because he'll be in the system now. So, they'd already been doing that. About a month after his arrest, they came back and they said, "We so far have not found anything that attaches to Mr. Kohberger, or his MO, or his DNA, or his fingerprints." The fingerprints too, those would go in the system also. So They were gonna keep looking, obviously, but let's say he was, like, smarter and didn't happen to leave DNA behind the first time. They said that they didn't find a connection, and in fact, the only thing that they did find, was he had called 911 at some point because he, like, went to a park or something and, like, parked his car behind the gate locked at, like, sunset or whatever. He had to call the police to, like, open the lock and let him out, and he thanked the police afterwards. "We can verify my info." I'm trying to give I'm trying to give Lori a heart attack. I will not say. But it's like I said before, it's almost like we were concerned because the shit that we said was, like, the really, really important, really the stuff that was gonna get him seemed to be, like, crumbling, and we were like, "We need we need to come up with, like, more damning evidence." So what do? We find the loaded IDs. We find the loaded IDs. That's all we need. Let's go to trial tomorrow. Let's just go to trial tomorrow, because there's no reason that he should have any IDs in gloves, in boxes. And also, our anonymous sources say that he's also being investigated for other murders. So if true, if all of that's true, he's guilty. If we, like, don't hear about it in a week or so, you could just go ahead and throw it in the trash and chalk it up to, "It wasn't true." Just like all the other things that we keep getting told that then disappear out of the news. No one talks about it anymore because it ended up not being true. No one takes any accountability for what they said that wasn't true, but we're supposed to believe this new thing. But man, I really wish that my anonymous tip would have been the one. There's still time. I think they're turning into like 24-hour news people, so there is still time. Plenty of episodes left. And this is exactly it. I feel like it'd be even worse to, and it's not like we've never seen it before, but it would be even worse for him to be the person that did it and get off because we didn't know what we were doing, or didn't know what we were doing and we're up against someone who did know what they were doing. That shit's scary. That's very scary. Like, I don't figure, maybe I'm wrong. Like, is anybody lining up to have more children like with Casey Anthony? If they are, I'd be shocked. And no, I don't wanna talk about the special, and no, I didn't pay to go watch it either because I don't wanna hear it. Yeah, I'm still hoping and praying, Stormy. My hopes are still very high. Maybe after the weekend. They have to pilfer through. We talked about this briefly. I do wanna give Steven, like, his own space. But we did talk about this earlier. Um, I think that that's, like, who they're talking about. I think that's who was concerned about coming forward and who might feel safer doing so now that the trial's over. But I don't know, of course. Um oh, and just so you all know, so I had in my head right, I sent I sent a request for all the paperwork for Steven, and they immediately come back and they say, "Okay." I'm like, "I want videos, I want audio, I want pictures, I want all of the notes, I want all of the, sworn statements, I want everything." And they fairly quickly email me back and they say, "That'd be fine, that'd be $500." And I was like, "What? $500 for what?" Like, this this better be 1,000 pages and hours and hours and hours and hours of audio and video and stuff that I gotta make other people look through for $500. So, we all went back and forth for days. I'm like, "It'd be really nice to have this, but I hate to spend this kind of money." And someone else say, "We really need to have the crime scene photos because this is absolute nonsense, but it's a lot of money." And then, like, another day would go by. And I'm finally to the point where I was like, "I can't I can't make a decision or be helpful the way that I want to if I'm sitting here trying to figure out which crime scene photos are reenactments and which ones are real. So let's just order the file." So we really gonna pull the trigger. Okay. So I was like, let me just email her. So I email her back and I say, "How many pages is all of the written stuff?" Thinking it better be at least 500 pages. A dollar a page is expensive. She emailed me back. "Do you want to know how many pages it is?" 110 pages. I'm here to tell you that the PDF file that's out there right now that was put out there like by Fitz News and stuff, the 110 pages of it, that is all there is. For the written portion of everything, that is all there is. 110 pages. So, no, they didn't reach out to Joe Blow and write it down somewhere else and didn't provide like, that is the whole case file. So, it says a lot to me. I feel like there would be more if it didn't involve some of the law enforcement that put their hands into Stephen's case. The problem is that a lot of them don't work there anymore. Perry Singleton, okay, the one who said that Stephen was wearing a white polo shirt, what happened to the white polo shirt? Was he wearing one? And did someone take it and lose it? Or was he never wearing one? We need to know why he wrote that. We need to ask Perry Singleton why he wrote that. He needs to be held accountable. He needs to explain why. Because if he saw him in a white polo shirt, and then every single picture we have after that, and every single report that we have after that shows him in a black Nike shirt, that's a problem. But unfortunately, Perry Singleton is deceased. He was also the lead investigator. So it's like, what? What is happening? We'll have to we'll have to end because now I'll have to know. And of course, my head's going somewhere else because it's something that I read earlier today on this. But you know, I don't think it's just, like, kids that were scared to come forward and talk about Steven. I think the case got fucked up for, like, a reason, and I think that the people that might have been a little scared, um, might have been people that were involved in the investigation. I think that's the only way that I can make sense of how some of the things didn't happen in the investigation, did or didn't happen. Otherwise, it's like, it really doesn't make any sense, um, because it's not like they followed up with everybody. So, I don't know. I know I'm tired of reading a case file that has people's names in it and being told that I can't talk about one name, but I could talk about because the news came out and said that they have 2 suspects that been in the paperwork, aren't even in the paperwork as many times as other people, and we're told not to talk about one, but we're excusing away what everyone in that county went through with these people, okay? Regardless of regardless of who now is alone. So, Buster Murdaugh lost his mother and his brother and his father and his grandfather. I get that, but that doesn't mean that there was no hands in anything 8 years ago when Stephen Smith was killed. So, I'll not be told after what I saw in a trial and know that that's something that does happen in real life. This is a real thing. This is like a real life thing. It doesn't just happen in South Carolina or in just Hampton. So, the more you ignore shit like that and pretend like it doesn't happen, the worse that it gets. And I understand that he lost people that he loves, but their names are in the documents. I'm sorry. Stephen's mother wrote a letter to the FBI and said that solicitor Murdahl, so Randy dad, not brother or uncle, not young Randy, reached out to them. There was a little bit of confusion because some were thinking it was like younger Randy. It was Grandpa Randy per Sandy's letter to the FBI. So Grandpa Randy immediately called them, like, while they were still waiting to find out if it was Steven, okay? What happened with the boat crash? Because 'Cause I'm pretty sure that they got to the hospital, and the first person that was called was Grandpa Randy, and Grandpa Randy got involved, and he got Alex involved, and he got Randy involved. Everybody got involved, right? How is that any different than their behavior in 2015? Randy got involved, Grandpa Randy, and then disappeared. Alex went to the crime scene, supposedly. I mean, they didn't, like, get that way. Like, by the time we knew about like, by the time it was by the time the boat crash happened, those behaviors were already learned. They were habits. That's how they had been operating. It wasn't like, "Oh, shit, something happened. Now we have to work together to cover it up." Like, it had been like that. So, I don't know if we're trying not to scare somebody, or I don't know. But some of these investigators that should be being held accountable for what happened with that case, with Stephen's case, are dead or gone, got a job somewhere else. If they're working somewhere else, they don't have no reason to be scared. They should have came forward already. Then you got another one who's, like, all over the place, but here Alec Murdaugh stole his money. So now it's like, what? Well, you didn't come forward before. So now I have to question whether you're coming forward because you found out he stole from you or because you're wanting to be honest. It's a big mess. It's not fair to Stephen or his family. And the more we try to, like, quiet everybody and not talk about it, the easier it becomes for this to happen to somebody else's family and somebody else's family and somebody else's family. Like, they're not all dead. Would we assume that all the power ends with the old people? That's an honest question. But anyway, I'm glad we covered several things, many things, nothing like I wanted to. I was going to explain all of the search warrants to everybody, and we were all going to be on the same page. And really, all we're at is I want to keep talking, and I want to keep talking about the actual things that are here as they come out, and not get all caught up in this crazy. I don't even want to talk about these ID cards, if that's what it says. Wouldn't it be hilarious if we got this information from these search warrants that we've had this entire time, right? And we thought that's what they said, and then come to find out that's not what it says. Let's say it says, like, let's say it does say carrots. How silly are we gonna look? What records? 100%. I was trying to talk about this to somebody else. It's very sad, but it's very true. And if he was, in fact, if Stephen was, in fact, gay, and if he was, in fact, dating men of influence who weren't openly gay, it is a heavy, heavy secret and motive. And if you're trying to protect your reputation and your job and your family, back in 2015, in a teeny weeny town full of bigots who don't have very much experience or open mindedness with people like that, you get this. I'd be less concerned about the bizarre person who tells the whole world and all of Facebook that he's gay, that he was dating this young boy, which should have been criminal, but whatever. But I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think, like everything else there, it has to do with secrets. And that's a big secret to be walking around with for sure. And these men will do it. But I love you guys. We'll come back soon. This went on way too long. and I hope I didn't bore you. Oh, and I'll post I don't think I post the timeline thing here, just the other place on Twitter. So, I'll put it here too so that everybody has it. Oh, you guys are still here. Okay. I love you guys. I'm gonna go. Thanks for coming. Bye.